High-level ZZZ combo tech is insanely fun, crazy satisfying, and looks really cool if I do say so myself, but if it only works in the lab and not in any of the endgame modes where you get most of the rewards and bragging rights, is it not somewhat pointless? Hey, what's up? It's your boy Casual, and I make videos about cool combo tech in ZZZ, stretching the limits of what's possible in the game. But every time I upload a video, I get comments like this complaining about how much of a waste of time it all is, because according to them, none of it works in real combat scenarios. Now, I will always be the first to freely admit juggling enemies is not optimal. It's not going to skyrocket your clear times, magically trivialize all the content, mow your lawn, or get you a hot anime waifu. I'm sorry, but just because this kind of tech won't always help you play optimally doesn't mean it can't help you play successfully. Hi, hello, Hecky G, lads, ladies, and everyone in between. After my last video, I've realized a lot of people actually think that if you're playing stylishly, you obviously can't also be effective, but that could not possibly be any less true. So today we're gonna bust that myth, because here at HC Casual HQ, we are all about both style and substance. So today I'm gonna walk you through a couple of combos in Shiyu defense, as well as the overworld. Combos that I didn't go out of my way to set up, that just kinda happened while playing organically, and I'll teach you the simple trick that makes using combos like these on the fly easy. And at the very end, I've got a special treat for you. We're gonna talk about the real reason I think so many people hate the idea of playing more creatively so much, because I'm sure some of you must have been kind of confused about how weirdly hostile some people can get about the fact that some of us just like to have fun in different ways. And I'm sure there are some of these people are just being problematic, right? Getting recreationally upset at strangers on the internet is a global pastime at this point. But aside from that, I think there is also kind of a core problem with the game design of Zenless Zone Zero that actively discourages juggling and pushes players away from experimenting with stuff like that. And I think the best way to get more people thinking outside of the box is to talk a little bit about why that is. And not just in the context of my own opinions. Nah, I am bringing receipts from one of the brilliant minds behind Ghost of Tsushima's combat, a game known for having some of the strongest combat gameplay design we've seen in this gaming generation. This is a new era for the channel. Things are going to be a little different around here, and something we're going to do a lot of is talk about principles of game design and how they affect our gaming experiences, because as a programmer, that's the kind of thing that really gets my mind going. And as gamers, the more we know, the more we understand about how and why things are the way they are, the deeper the connection we can form with the games we love, and I'd argue the more fun we can all have. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And always, if you like what you see, don't forget to hit the button, you know the one, and maybe subscribe, and join the anti-min-maxing crew with the rest of us filthy casuals. Look, I swear we aren't about to start talking about negative edging or Kara canceling, but there is a fighting game like mindset, or a tactic if you will, that I think could provide really important context for how combos and ZZZ work at their core, and can really help a lot of people start smoothly integrating them into their day-to-day gameplay. Because if you're looking at combos like this, and your main question is, well, how do I consistently do something like that in Shiyu, or the tower, or whatever, without ruining my clear times? My answer is, Zenless Zone Zero is a game all about hit confirms, and that phrase more or less means exactly what it sounds like. Basically, a hit confirm is when you initiate an attack, wait to see if it's successful, and once you confirm it is, then you go into your combo. When I play ZZZ, I'm not running around trying to launch and juggle literally every single enemy, ignoring all of the other game mechanics. I think the game's more basic combat structure can be a lot of fun too, and I think the most fun and most effective way to play ZZ stylishly is to combine the more standard playstyle as well as a more stylish one, and alternate between the two in reaction to the enemies you're fighting. So, what does that mean in the context of a hit confirm? Well, let's take a quick look at Yanagi and Bernice, because I think they're great examples. So Yanagi has two stances, each with their own unique basic attack string, and when you're playing as her, you spend a lot of time swapping between them to maintain her buffs. Her blue stance is good for juggling, her red is good for launching. So the way I approach setting up combos for Yanagi as I'm playing, I look for moments like this, where here you'll see I've coincidentally launched the enemy. Everyone who plays Yanagi is going to be doing this all the time, constantly. And normally, if I just kept mashing, I could just finish the standard Yanagi combo just fine, right? But because I know how good Bernice can be at catching airborne enemies, and I've confirmed the enemy is well positioned for that, I know this is a great opportunity to bring Bernice on field and use her bread and butter air combo. And I actually wanted to show you this clip because I made a mistake. I swapped to Lucy when I meant to bring Yanagi back on field, and I even accidentally canceled the chain attack because it's the same button as a quick assist. My point is, I am not the best gamer in the world, and I make a lot of mistakes when playing, so if I can land combos like this, I know you can too if you want. And you really don't have to worry about dropping a combo. It's not going to leave you hanging in the wind, and it's easy to recover afterwards, so why not just go for it, right? I'd say maybe like 90% of using combo tech in real scenarios comes down to simply knowing your team, knowing how their attacks can potentially connect to each other, and being ready to take advantage of small openings with less than a moment's notice. And if this helps, you can break every combo down into 3 pieces really. How are you launching the enemy? How are you keeping them in the air? And then how are you finishing your plate? The better you get to know your team and the more comfortable you are with your characters, the easier it'll be to hit confirm into more stylish combos while you're just casually playing generally. And to be honest, that's the main reason you're rarely going to see Shiyu footage from me. I don't like Shiyu defense. It's boring as hell, so I spend as little time there as possible. I'm kind of waiting for a better combat-focused endgame mode to sink my teeth into, and nah, Battle Tower really ain't it. I've been asking for Bloody Palace since day one, and I was excited about the tower, but the tower is missing literally everything that makes Bloody Palace more than an afterthought. We'll talk about what I mean soon. We're going to break it all down in an upcoming video, but for now, allow me to walk you through another example. Now, this is a Shiyu defense run from a little bit ago. It starts off like a lot of Shiyu clears, as you always want to group as many enemies as possible as quickly as possible to save on time, right? To that end, normally I try to stun an enemy and then go directly maybe into like Nicole's chain attack to bring them all together, but you know me, I like to get a little frisky. So instead, I brought Jiyen on field, because she's got this little trick where if you time it right, her chain attack can actually catch an airborne enemy before they fall, and if you cancel the recovery, you can get a free combo extension afterwards. So, that's what I did. Afterwards, I swapped Nicole in briefly, not just for style, but because these attacks actually debuff the enemy as well, making Nicole one of the best characters to do this kind of thing with. I followed that up by sending Jiyen out really quickly for style before bringing Ambi back in. A little too quickly, actually. If you look closely, I whiffed because the enemy was a bit high, and if you caught the Jiyen guide, you'll know that height actually matters a lot for her attacks. But anyway, I swapped back into Ambi from there because I wanted to trigger another chain attack, and I intentionally delayed that stun so I could guarantee 2. Nicole's Black Hole for grouping and Defense Shred into Jiyen's for damage. But as you can see, I was going for Ambi's BA4 finisher here because I have the Mindscape that boosts her energy regen whenever you use it, but I got interrupted by an enemy forcing me to dodge and counter instead. When dealing with trash mobs, that's going to happen a lot, but as long as you're keeping an eye out, it really isn't that much of a problem since the vast majority of dodge counters are actually pretty good for juggling. You just got to kind of learn how to adjust your combos in response. Like here, I realized I wasn't going to be able to finish the BA4, so triggering stun with a dodge counter was the move. And from there, it was just a matter of cleaning up, and this was a kind of sloppy run, not gonna lie, but still more than effective and still left me with more than enough time to S-rank. And this combo in particular is a great example of why manual mode is kinda important. This quite literally would not be possible with automatic mode because Nicole would have triggered the stun too early and I only would have gotten a single chain attack instead of 2. And the same applies to our final example. This was a standard Hollow Zero run, trading health for as many free buffs as possible so I can burn through my weeklies as quickly as possible. And this is a good example of how combos will have to shift on the fly, because I actually intended to set up one combo, but because I was surrounded and the enemy happened to attack me from behind, I had to switch gears into something entirely different. Let's break it down. So I opened with Qingyi to group the enemies and build some stun, and from there I decided to launch one using Qingyi's BA4 and then dash cancel out of it to juggle them, only to notice another enemy was about to attack me from behind. Another thing about Jiyen is not only is her parry actually a witch time dodge counter because she's a ranged unit, but her follow-up attack actually launches enemies. So to avoid damage, I used Jiyen's parry and went into her launcher, holding the input so the attack wouldn't trigger stun, again because I'm in manual mode. I then brought Nicole on field briefly to sneak in a couple of attacks, again holding the input to avoid triggering stun, followed by bringing Jiyen back in so I could maintain the juggle using her basic attack string. And from there, it's just a matter of finishing the string and using the final hit to trigger a chain attack into Qingyi so I can both kill the enemy and put myself in an ideal position to shift focus to the next one in line. None of that is particularly difficult, it's just decent situational awareness and being comfortable enough with how each character's kit works to be able to adapt on the fly. You see, when I show you these really long combos, I'll be 100% honest. There is nothing in the game that you can juggle that will survive like a 45-second combo, and I'm not trying for something like that in standard gameplay. But ZZZ is a game where you can absolutely freestyle parts of combos like this on the fly, peel out pieces for general use, like Bernice's flamethrower loops. Again, is this all optimal? No, but will getting stylish completely ruin your run? Also no. As long as you're on point, you can still manage an S rank totally fine. It's just a different way to play, a way to spice things up a bit and reach for that skill ceiling. And just because I like juggling doesn't mean I ignore the rest of the game either, it's just a really nice cherry on top. And it isn't fun because the enemy can't fight back, it's fun because the slightest hesitation, a single missed input, means the enemy will fall out of your combo and they'll have the chance to recover and counter. Like I said, I'm a programmer, so I love puzzles and problem solving, and juggling is like the ultimate combat puzzle. A puzzle that forces you to look at your team and fit the pieces of their moveset together in different ways to solve it. It's really fun, and in ZZZ's case, the timing is so tight it feels beyond satisfying when you actually pull something like this off in the wild. And of course, combos like these only work on weaker enemies, but to be honest, this is kind of how it is in all games. That's another really weird complaint I've seen in the comments a lot. People will be all like, well, I can't juggle the bosses, so what's the point? And like, I don't know what to tell that person, because I don't want to be mean, but that's like how literally all character action games work. I don't know, like in Devil May Cry, you're not gonna be juggling Cerberus. Hey, look, at the end of the day, I think the best action games need a variety of combat experiences. In ZZZ, we got trash mobs, elites, and bosses, and you can approach all of those fights from different perspectives, and that helps keep the gameplay fresh, and combos like these can help make even the smallest of encounters fun. But, of course, as satisfying as this kind of thing can be to execute or to just look at, it's never going to be the most popular way to play, and that's likely because the structure of gacha games like Zenless Zone Zero actively discourages that kind of experimentation. Now, I mentioned I had a theory about why some people are so opposed to getting more creative with their gameplay for the sake of having fun, and you may be unsurprised to hear that I think the source of that problem is the same as it almost always is: money. Monetization is the bane of all games because the unfortunate truth is no one has solved the problem, the number one problem I think almost everyone in the software as a service space is trying to solve to varying degrees of success, especially when it comes to games like this. The problem being, how do you make money off of something you're giving away for free? Because most people aren't mustache twirling oil barons or whatever and don't just throw money around willy-nilly, so if they're too happy with what they get for free, the vast majority of people will also be happy to leave their money in their wallet. So you've got to introduce some friction to convince people to pay up. All live service games do, and in ZZZ's case, like most gacha games, the friction of course comes from the gambling. But also the resource scarcity and the time gating, the way that parts of character kits are locked behind duplicates, and like half a dozen other annoyances. Which, you know, if it wasn't obvious, this is in no way a defense of the business practices, just acknowledging the reality, right? Part of the reason gacha games are interesting to me is because they're like Jenga towers of bad design decisions, and every company's kind of got to figure out their own way to maintain a balance between keeping the audience happy enough to keep playing, but unhappy enough to keep paying. It's a hell of a juggling act. And, you know, I think ZZZ is doing an alright job of that so far. The problem is, like, gacha games like ZZZ kind of depend on making us feel boxed in to an extent. If you don't pair certain characters together, they won't work properly. If you don't match enemy typing, you'll be at a disadvantage. If you don't use the right combo, you'll kneecap your damage. And if you're not keeping an eye out for all the ways you can accidentally screw yourself in the early game, like, I don't know, being silly enough to assume you can just level characters freely like a regular video game instead of building two teams, well, mistakes like that can come back to bite you when you least expect it, all for the sake of making the monetization more effective. Hoyo is committed towards pushing us to play and potentially pay the way they want us to, which, you know, as much as I disagree with the approach, is by no means evil to create an effective user behavior flow. But one of the things we as a community should probably talk more about is how all the restrictions in gacha games do affect the way some of us behave and engage with these games. How the monetization affects our experiences, whether we're whales, low spenders, or even entirely free to play. And so, keeping all of that in mind, I wanted to show you this clip from the 2021 Game Developers Conference. The full talk will be linked down below. It's a really interesting discussion with so much great information in it. I highly recommend giving it a watch yourself. But one moment that has stuck with me for years is how Chris Zimmerman, one of the co-founders of Sucker Punch and I believe one of the lead combat designers behind Ghost of Tsushima, described what's called the hide the cheese rule and its impact on gameplay experiences.
Skill-based parries were our first real immersive success. It felt dangerous to delay your block and skillful to pull it off. But there was an exploit with this. There was a cheese opportunity. You could flutter the block button, press block very quickly, and parry every single attack. You could press the block button fast enough that you were guaranteed to hit the windup of an enemy attack. So while we loved the parry mechanism, when it worked there was a spark of magic, many players couldn't leave the cheese alone. Once they discovered this exploit, they couldn't stop themselves from using it, even though they weren't happy. And this was an internal playtest. These are professional game developers. They knew that this was a bug. They knew that this was an exploit. They knew we would fix it. They knew they weren't having fun, but they kept doing it. Here's a general game design rule that follows from these two examples, and many others like them. You might think of this as the hide the cheese rule. Most players will play the game in what they perceive as the most effective way to make progress, even if that leads to them having less fun. Even if they know that playing the game that way isn't fun, they'll still play it the way they think is most effective, and they won't be happy.
Most players will play a game in the most effective way to make progress, even if that leads to them having less fun. Now, how many of you can relate to that? Yes, Zimmerman is discussing a very different kind of game, but if Tsushima, a game that is so open-ended with so much more room for player expression, could still make a person feel pigeonholed into a single playstyle like that, even when they knew better, how much stronger must that urge be when it comes to gacha games, where there's so often an objectively correct way to play on some level? And not only that, but you can potentially kneecap yourself if you veer too far away from it, and who knows how far that is. I think that's a big part of why so many people in the gacha community in particular are so quick to assume that if you're not playing optimally, you can't play effectively, because on some level, all the restrictions in gacha games kind of push us in that direction for the sake of the monetization. Because the more limited your options feel, the easier it is to convince you that you do need that new character or that signature weapon, instead of being satisfied with what you've already got and what you're going to get for free. So I think it is no wonder that large parts of the gacha community tend to get somewhat stuck in their ways, and experimenting with something new or learning a playstyle that isn't optimal solely for the sake of having fun is going to sound counterproductive to some people. They're worried about clear times and rewards because that's what the game is focused on, and all this gameplay nonsense in the middle is just how they obtain those things. But that's also part of why I'm constantly advocating for ignoring the meta and forgetting about min-maxing, because I think it's the best way to avoid getting stuck in that kind of rut. I think it's only once you start playing your way and ignoring a lot of the restrictions in games like this that you can truly be free of them. Regardless though, I'm never going to sit here and try to dictate how you play. You do you. As always, take what you want from my videos and leave what you don't. My main goal here is to share cool tech and ideas that might help you find your own pathway to fun. Because when you start thinking outside the box, when you start making your own fun instead of waiting for it to be handed to you on a silver platter, a whole world of gameplay opportunities opens up to you. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, maybe subscribe and join the Filthy Casual crew, because we'll be having many more discussions just like this one in the future. I wasn't really planning on this follow-up video, but I see similar comments so often, I figured it'd be good to have something to refer people to instead of constantly replying to them all. So we're just going to leave it here for now, but we'll definitely be revisiting this topic in the future. In fact, that GDC talk is definitely going to come up again, because my issue of ZZZ's Battle Tower can kind of be summed up by this single slide here. In my opinion, this is one of the most important rules of game design, and I cannot wait to break down exactly how ZZZ is coming up short. So stay tuned, because next time I guess I'll be disagreeing with what feels like the entire community as I explain why the Battle Tower really ain't it. But before we get there though, I also have a Yanagi guide incoming that's going to go into more details about some of the combos you've seen today, and I'm also going to give you some tips on managing her stances and parrying, and we're going to talk a lot about how you really pop off with disorder teams. As always, thanks for joining me here today. What do you think? Am I cooking or am I crazy? Let me know down below. Cheers, lads, ladies, and everyone in between. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a phenomenal day, and hopefully I'll see you back here sometime very, very soon. Hey, what's up? This is Editor Casual. I was just responding to a few comments while I was waiting for this video to render, and I noticed YouTube has this new feature where it auto-generates like replies for you. And I wanted to read you with what the what the AI or whatever came up with in response to this one comment, because it's really sending me Charcoal over here. Which, shout out to you, Charcoal. I appreciate the love and support. But anyway, they left a nice comment in reply to the combo showcase I uploaded the other day, talking about how they would like to see more combo-focused ZZZ content, right? And I was about to respond and say something along the lines of how I enjoy a lot of traditional gacha content from other creators, but I would definitely love to see more creative combos as well. But then I saw what YouTube came up with for me instead, and like, oh my god. YouTube thinks I should say, yeah, it's cool to see these stat squishers and all, but the game is built to be fun. Like, what the hell? Stat squishers? I've never heard that before, but it's so dumb. I love it. I'm calling the min-maxers stat squishers from now on.